Okay, we are still at Capernaum. The synagogue is that way. We walked over to be by the Sea of Galilee. These are aloe plants, large aloe plants. And Greg is going to do a
I wanted to
teaching.
use this place to talk about Mark chapter 6, and this isn't the location, contrary to what some would have you believe. We don't know the location. But I want to read this passage first, starting in verse 34. When Jesus went ashore, he saw a large crowd, and he felt compassion for them because they were like sheep without a shepherd, and he began to teach them many things. When it was already quite late, his disciples came to him and said, "This place is desolate and it's already quite late. Send them away so they may go into the surrounding countryside and villages and buy themselves something to eat." But he answered them, "You give them something to eat." And they said to him, "Shall we go and spend 200 denarii on bread and give them something to eat?" That'd be like 200 days' wages. And he said to them, "How many loaves do you have? Go look." And they found out, and they said, 5 and 2 fish. And he commanded them to sit down by groups on the green grass. They sat down in groups of hundreds and 50s. And he took the 5 loaves and the 2 fish, and looking toward heaven, I'm reading from the New American Standard. It says, he blessed the food and broke the loaves, and he kept giving them to the disciples to set before them, and he divided up the 2 fish among them all. They all ate and were satisfied, and they picked up 12 full baskets of broken pieces and also of fish. There were 5,000 men who ate the loaves. Immediately Jesus made his disciples get into the boat and go ahead of him to the other side, to Bethsaida, where he himself was sending the crowd away. After bidding them farewell, he left for them out to pray. When it was evening, the boat was in the middle of the sea, and he was alone on the land. Seeing them straining at the oars, for the wind was against them, at about the 4th watch of the night, he came to them walking by on the sea, and intended to pass by them. But when they saw him walking on the sea, they supposed it was a ghost, and cried out. For they all saw him and were terrified. But immediately he spoke to them and said to them, "Take courage, it's I. Do not be afraid." Then he got into the boat with them, and the wind stopped, and they were utterly astonished, for they had not gained any insight from the incident of the loaves, but their hearts were hardened. Sometimes when I don't mean to sound sacrilegious, but sometimes when I read the Gospels, I read something and I think, boy, Jesus was a jerk. And this was one of those things that I read, and at first I was like, honestly, like they were supposed to know, because he did the loaves and fishes thing, that he could walk on water. Like, who's going to get that one, right? I mean, it seems like completely out of the blue. Well, it's not so out of the blue. It is out of the blue for us because of our culture, what we come from. You guys know the prayer we've been saying at meals. You know, each meal we share together. Recite it with me in English. We'll do it in English, right? Blessed are you, Lord our God, King of the universe, who brings forth bread from the earth. All right, I was reading from the New American Standard, and it says, he took the 5 loaves and the 2 fish, and looking up toward heaven, he blessed the food and broke the loaves. Now, in the New American Standard, it tends to be a literal translation where they try and translate one Hebrew or Greek word into one English word. Sometimes they vary from that. And they sometimes add words because they think, well, it's not going to make sense if we just do a straight translation. This is one of those cases. Thankfully, they also make it obvious when they do that. Any words that they've added that aren't actually in the original, they put in italics. So what it actually says, if you take out the words in italics, which aren't part of the original text, it says, he took the 5 loaves and the 2 fish, and looking up toward heaven, he blessed and broke the loaves. The prayer that we've been reciting, the blessing of the bread, is a prayer that is recorded to have even come from before Jesus' day. And this is the prayer that everyone in Jesus' day would pray before he came. They're not asking like we have in our modern society. You know, there's that Tim Hawkins thing, you know, God bless this Cheeto, you know, somehow change the molecular structure. All right, that's not a Jewish form of prayer. They don't ask God to bless the food. The Jewish understanding is if we have this food, it's proof already that God has blessed the land and given this, and we need to bless him back. That's the idea of Jewish prayer. I have a section I want to read from a book by Marvin Wilson where he talks about this. Unlike the practice of most Western Christians today, in Bible times, the Hebrew people did not see the need to bless food, drink, or other material things. In prayer, they focused only on blessing God, the Creator and Giver. The Gospels indicate Jesus followed the same custom. Matthew 26:26, Luke 24:30. And then it says this, while they were eating, Jesus took some bread, and after a blessing, he broke it and gave it to the disciples. When he had reclined at the table with them, he took the bread and blessed it, as it says in the translation here. Notice it is italicized. He's not blessing the bread. But that's what we think in our modern day, and so that's what the translators put back into it, but that's not there. He continues, he says, the ancient Hebrews would never have thought of blessing what they ate. The idea would have been totally foreign to them. It would have been an insult of sorts to God. If everything God created was very good, Genesis 1:31, why would one imply that it's really unholy and profane? The post-biblical notion that one needed to sanctify, cleanse, or purify what God had already created and declared to be good would be strange theology to biblical writers. It suggests that food and drink, in and of themselves, are unacceptable until they're made holy through prayer. So instead they do this blessing where they bless God. Have you guys all seen Fiddler on the Roof? Yeah? Most of the time throughout the movie, you see all these references to the different blessings. In fact, they're always running to the rabbi asking him, and it's not to be funny. This is something that's done to this day by many religious Jews, where they have these blessings that they recite for certain things, like the blessing before eating bread. There's a blessing before drinking wine. As Eve mentioned earlier this week, there's a blessing when you successfully go to the bathroom. There's a blessing when you wake up in the morning, blessing God for giving you another day. In the movie, they run up to the rabbi at one point, and when what's-his-face gets the sewing machine,
Mandel the tailor.
which guy is it?
Mandel the tailor.
Yes.